How to identify your vintage Sonor set by just looking at the lugs. Let's start with the 50s teardrop lugs. They have a spring-loaded insert for classic Sonor quarter-inch tension rods. In the late 50s, another shape of teardrop lugs was introduced. Instead of the spring-loaded insert, the insert is just a flat oval-shaped piece of metal that is stuck inside the lug from below. This model is pretty close to the most well-known teardrop lug that was probably introduced sometime in the early 60s and stayed till the early 70s. A similar shape was later reintroduced for the vintage series. All of the teardrop lugs had two little threads on the bottom so they could be fixed to the shell with M4 nuts instead of regular fixing screws that are more common today. The shape of the later model is a little more refined and usually the chrome plating is in better condition. These lugs can be found with three different inserts: regular hexagonal nuts, these oval ones that I showed you before, or this new shape that you can see here on the bottom. It was probably invented to produce less scrap during the manufacturing. Then in the early 70s, the Champion lug was introduced, a large boxy lug shape with a classic Sonor logo with thin sticks and stripes on top. The earliest models also had these teardrop insert pieces in them. They had threads for regular M4 fixing screws and the holes were 47mm apart. Pretty quickly, this lug got upgraded with a spring-loaded insert for the Champion series. Then, around the middle of the 70s, Sonor introduced their new flagship model, the Phonic. With the Phonic series, they introduced a brand new snap lock insert technology and special flattened tension rods that wouldn't detune as easily. Here, we have three Champion lugs that look the same on the outside, but once you turn them around, you can see that over the years, they had some different versions. I don't know too much about the casting process, but probably it has something to do with that. By the way, while filming this episode, we realized that some of the 70s lugs are slightly higher than the others, and also the wall thickness varies a bit. They probably started out with the highest version with thicker walls, and then for future production, they changed to a version that used slightly less metal, therefore cutting costs. Also in the early 70s, Sonor introduced the cheaper Swinger series with plastic lugs. They have the same hole-to-hole distance, so if one of these plastic lugs breaks, you can just replace it with a nice metal one. The Swingers also used the vintage 60s teardrop insert pieces. My father jokingly used to say that Sonor was so ashamed of the Action series that they even removed their logo from the lugs. These are also made from plastic, and besides the missing logo, they are pretty much identical to the Swinger ones. Well then, sometime around the late 70s or early 80s, the classic boxy Sonor lugs got an upgrade. Sonor used bigger sticks in their logos now. These new lugs, with a regular insert, were either used on Phonic bass drums or on all drums of the Performer series. Looking at the inside of a couple of different 80s lugs, you can see slight variations in the numbers and letters in there, but on the outside they are 100% identical. And of course, they still used the snap lock system in the 80s. These lugs can be found on later Phonic models, Phonic Plus, Signature and Light series. An honorable mention would be, if you have a snap lock lug from the 80s in black color, you probably own a Phonic Plus High-Tech or an extremely rare custom Signature. And if your drum set has black 80s lugs without the snap lock, then you probably own a Panther set, which is basically the black version of the Performer. But in the 80s and early 90s, there were also some false friends that can still be found sometimes. Here you can see a lug from the Sonor International series. It was made in Taiwan, still nice quality and chrome plating. However, they only used one fixing screw, so you cannot exchange them with other Sonor lugs from that era. Also, the inserts stick out a little further in the front. Then we have one more false friend, which is a series of Taiwanese fake Sonor lugs. Instead of the stick logo, they had just a dot on top. Well, it seems funny today, but probably Sonor didn't find it too funny back then. They are probably more rare than the original Sonors at this point. So now one more time, we got the 50s, 60s and early 70s teardrop lugs, the early Champion, Champion with a regular insert, Swinger, Action, Performer, the Signature lugs, as well as the International lugs. So if you didn't know already, now you know.